Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dogs and cats, dragons of all ages, and welcome to video 3 of my countdown to Star Wars Episode 9. Today we will be looking at Star Wars Rebels. Debuting in fall of 2014, the show was one of the first projects Disney rolled out after purchasing the rights to the Star Wars license. The show was headed by the main man behind the previously cancelled Clone Wars series, Dave Filoni, and would go on for 4 seasons until wrapping up its story in early 2018. While the show had a rough start due to initially being targeted at a younger audience, as the seasons went on, the show became relatively well received. Since I'm going to cover the show in its entirety, I won't go over every episode, aside from a few that particularly stand out from the rest of the show. I don't think many people will argue that Season 1 is easily the worst and roughest season of Rebels to get through. This is primarily because the first 3 quarters of the season are either extremely childish or mediocre. As you can imagine, this childish tone didn't sit well with a lot of fans who were coming off the more adult Clone Wars series that Disney cancelled halfway through Season 6 production. The show does get a little better when the Inquisitor shows up, but even then it's kind of weighed down by some of the gimmicky weapons they include, particularly the Inquisitor's lightsaber design. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of this. Dual blades like Maul's I can understand because the hilt is long enough to act as a staff, but I feel like this design would seriously restrict your range of motion when you have both blades ignited. The spinning aspect looks cool and is reminiscent of General Grievous, but other than using it as a large shield, I don't feel there's a lot of actual combat uses for it, at least none that provide a significant advantage. Anyway, the basic story of the season is that Ezra Bridger, an orphan street rat of Lothal, stumbles across a group of rebels that go by the call sign Phoenix Squadron. The crew consists of Hera, the pilot and leader of the squad, her Wat Chopper, Zeb, a Lasat looking to take down the Empire for exterminating his species, Sabine, an art and weapons enthusiast Mandalorian, and Kanan, an ex-Jedi currently hiding from the Empire. They realize that Space Aladdin is Force-sensitive and Kanan begins teaching him the ways of the Jedi. The Empire learns that there are former Jedi hiding on Lothal and sends an Inquisitor to hunt them down. After multiple failures, Governor Wilhuff Tarkin steps in to try and stamp the rebels out. However, the rebels manage to destroy Tarkin's Star Destroyer and show the galaxy that the Empire is not invincible. During the destruction of the Star Destroyer, Kanan and Space Aladdin have one final battle with the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor is beaten, but due to the destruction around them, finds himself holding onto a ledge above an exploding reactor. Kanan chooses to spare the Inquisitor, but the Inquisitor only replies, "There are things far more frightening than death," before letting go and falling into the flames below. It is after this we learn that Ahsoka Tano has been working with other rebel cells in the galaxy to bring down the Empire. The final scene of the season reveals that the Emperor has sent Darth Vader to deal with the rebels. The episodes that stand out most usually involve someone from the original trilogy showing up, such as Lando Calrissian, voiced by Billy D. Williams, or Grand Moff Tarkin. The season finale involving Tarkin is definitely the best that the first season has to offer, otherwise you can skip most of it and you won't be missing out on much. Season 2 is an improvement from Season 1 with the first episode involving Vader hunting down the rebels and chasing them off of Lothal. In the following episodes, Ahsoka sends Phoenix Squadron to recruit Captain Rex, Commander Wolffe, and Gregor, 3 clones who refused Order 66 and are now hiding from the Empire. After this, Rex and Ahsoka become regular characters that show up throughout the season. From there, most of the episodes are individual stories that range from adding to the immediate story, setting things up for the future, or just plain filler. The villains our heroes encounter are mostly Imperial commanders, Agent Kallus, and some more Inquisitors. Vader does occasionally show up from time to time, but he's really only ever involved in the first episode and the finale of the season. The real main storyline of the season is primarily Kanan continuing Ezra's Jedi training and working to discover what the Sith are up to so they can stop them. It all builds to the finale, where Ezra, Kanan, and Ahsoka go to the Sith planet of Malachor and encounter a third Inquisitor searching for someone. Ezra is separated from the others and meets the one that the Inquisitor is hunting, Darth Maul. Maul takes Ezra to an ancient Sith temple and prompts him to use the dark side so they can enter and retrieve the Sith holocron. After retrieving the holocron, they meet up with Ahsoka and Kanan, who are fighting off 3 Inquisitors and help drive them off. With Ezra vouching for Maul, Kanan and Ahsoka reluctantly follow him up the side of the temple, where they are once more separated and attacked by Inquisitors. After killing the Inquisitors assailing them, Maul continues to sway Ezra to the dark side. Ezra then goes ahead to the top of the temple while Maul confronts Ahsoka and Kanan, revealing to them his intentions of making Ezra his apprentice after blinding Kanan. Using the Force, Kanan throws Maul off the side of the temple and goes to catch up to Ahsoka and Ezra. At the top of the temple, Ezra discovers that the temple is actually a weapon that requires the holocron to activate it, but when he goes to tell Kanan and Ahsoka, he is confronted by Darth Vader. Vader destroys Ezra's lightsaber, but is then confronted by Ahsoka, and they engage in one of the tensest and emotional battles in Star Wars history. Meanwhile, Ezra and Kanan work together to remove the holocron and deactivate the temple. The temple begins destroying itself, forcing Kanan and Ezra to leave Ahsoka behind to face her former master in one of the most emotional moments in the entire show.
Ahsoka. Ahsoka.
Anakin. I won't leave you. Not this time.
Then you will die.
Overall, I would say Season 2 is actually a decent season. I think the biggest problem I had while watching is that the smaller stories, while not bad, are just not as interesting as the season arc involving Vader. This inadvertently brings the in-between episodes down because I'd rather see what Vader and the Inquisitors are doing rather than follow Chopper on some Animaniacs adventure. The standout episodes are the premiere, A Princess on Lothal, where Princess Leia makes a guest appearance, The Protector of Concord Dawn, where we learn some more information about Sabine's past and the Mandalorians, The Call, where the crew of the Ghost help liberate the feeding ground of some space whales. Just trust me on this one. The Honorable Ones, wherein Zeb and Kallus crash on a frozen planet and have to work together to survive. The two-part finale is also standout episodes for Darth Vader and Maul, but some of the stuff involving the Inquisitors is also some of the worst in the entire show. While Rebels was an okay show overall during its first two seasons, it really starts to shine in Season 3. This is primarily due to Disney making their smartest decision since buying the franchise.
To defeat an enemy, you must know them. Not simply their battle tactics, but their history, philosophy, art.
Grand Admiral Thrawn.
For those who are unaware, Grand Admiral Thrawn is the primary antagonist of what is known as the Thrawn Trilogy, written by Timothy Zahn in the early 90s. He is also regarded as one of the best villains in the Star Wars universe, so fans were ecstatic when Disney announced they would be bringing him back into their canon, especially after tossing out the old EU. This, of course, set high expectations for Season 3, and the creators did not fail to deliver. The season begins with Phoenix Squad breaking into an Imperial prison, with Ezra tapping into the dark side to complete the mission. Kanan learns that Ezra has been using the Sith holocron and hides it with a Force-sensitive creature called the Bendu, the name of which is a reference to George Lucas's first draft of Star Wars, where the Jedi were known as the Jedi Bendu. Afterward, Darth Maul resurfaces, having survived the events of Malachor, and kidnaps Ezra's friends to get Ezra to bring him the Sith holocron, as well as a Jedi holocron Kanan has. Ezra brings him the holocrons, and together they combine them to learn an answer to a question each of them has. Ezra seeks to know how to destroy the Sith, while Maul seeks the location of his old nemesis, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Maul escapes, leaving the Ghost crew to go back to focusing on fighting the Empire. Throughout the season, the rebels encounter Thrawn's forces, but always manage to escape either because of the incompetence of Thrawn's subordinates or because Thrawn allows them to. Even when the rebels appear to outsmart the Empire, Thrawn hardly ever looks at it as a true defeat, since he learns more about the rebels with every encounter and comes closer to discovering the location of their hidden base. In the latter half of the season, Ezra, Kanan, and Sabine go to Dathomir and discover the cave Maul has been living in. There, Sabine finds the Darksaber, which acts as a symbol of leadership to the Mandalorians, similar to the Mandalor's mask from the old EU. We get some good development of Sabine's character as she learns to wield the Darksaber. After that, they go to reunite Sabine with her family in hopes of getting the Mandalorians to join the rebellion. While they are there, Clan Wrens decides to rise up against the Empire. They do not join the rebels though, as they are only interested in taking back Mandalore. Sabine stays with her family to help them in hopes to find a suitable wielder of the Darksaber to lead the Mandalorian uprising. The fourth to last episode reveals that Kallus has become a spy within the Empire for the rebels. During the course of the episode, Kallus is almost discovered after Ezra sneaks in to erase the planet the rebel base is on from the Empire's system. They manage to pin their actions on another Imperial officer. However, it is revealed that Thrawn has deduced that Kallus is in fact a spy and was simply playing along so Kallus can lead him to the rebels later. In the third to last episode, we meet Maul wandering the deserts of Tatooine in search of Kenobi, and he uses the Force to call Ezra there in hopes of drawing him out. Ezra falls for the bait, and Kenobi finds him collapsed from heat stroke. Ezra tries to convince Kenobi to join the rebellion, thinking that the vision that the Holocrons gave him meant he was the key to destroying the Sith. It is here that Kenobi gives Ezra what is one of my favorite bits of philosophy in Star Wars.
But the Holocrons, they tell the truth.
Do they? The truth is often what we make of it. You heard what you wanted to hear, believed what you wanted to believe. And now the only one who has gained anything from all of this is...
Me.
Maul shows up and Kenobi sends Ezra on his way while name-dropping an old comic and fan animation, Old Wounds. Maul and Kenobi's fight is short but extremely well thought out, sort of feeling like the final duel of a samurai movie, where it ends with one decisive strike. Maul dies and the episode ends with Kenobi looking out over the Lars moisture farm and seeing Luke running inside as Aunt Beru calls for him. The final two episodes are entirely focused on Thrawn discovering the rebel base and moving to attack it. This battle is one of the best shown on screen, as Thrawn technically beats the rebels multiple times, with the rebels only managing to survive and escape due to conditions and events outside of Thrawn's control. Season 3 is my favorite season, primarily because instead of being able to point out a few standout episodes like in earlier seasons, the majority of this season I feel is genuinely good, with only a couple episodes such as Iron Squadron or the return of Hondo feeling like unnecessary filler. While the continued development of the main cast is interesting, there is no doubt that Thrawn steals the show. I have to give credit to the writers as they adapted Thrawn's character almost perfectly in this season, from the way he studies his opponents through art to the fact that he is simply practical rather than pure evil. Lars Mikkelsen also does a great job portraying Thrawn's cold and calculating nature that sends shivers down your spine as you realize that he's always at least one step ahead of our heroes.
War. It's all you ever known, isn't it? You were so young when you survived the Clone War. No wonder you're as equipped in spirit to fight as well as you do. War is in your blood. I study the art of war, work to perfect it. But you were forged by it.
Sir, she's just a peasant.
It doesn't matter where we come from, Admiral. Our will to be free is what's going to beat you.
You dare!
Slavin, please. You embarrass me in front of our host.
Host? What?
May I introduce Hera Syndulla, rebel pilot, freedom fighter, and military leader. Daughter of your nemesis, Cham Syndulla.
How did you know?
Because rebels have friends always rushing to the rescue.
Moving on to the final season of Rebels, which I rank just below Season 3 in terms of quality. This season is very story-focused as our band of rebels prepare to try and take back Lothal from the Empire. It's also shorter than Seasons 2 and 3, as Dave Filoni wanted to end the story the way he wanted, and rather than stretch it out with filler. The season starts with Ezra and Kanan reuniting with Sabine to help her rescue her father. In the process, they meet Bo-Katan, who eventually accepts the Darksaber and becomes the leader of the Mandalorians. With their mission complete, Sabine returns to Phoenix Squad just before she and Ezra encounter Saw Gerrera and see how his tactics are different from the Rebellion's. Phoenix Squadron then sneaks onto Lothal to meet up with a group of Resistance fighters. After meeting up with what's left of the Resistance, Ezra and Sabine discover that the Empire is using Lothal as a base for developing Thrawn's newest weapon, the TIE Defender. They steal one of the prototype ships in order to retrieve the data from its flight recorder so that the rebellion can study it. They successfully get away, but Thrawn sends his hired Noghri assassin Rook to aid in retrieving the stolen data. Rook is another character that has been taken from the Thrawn trilogy, although he has a much different role in this show than he does in the books. In the old EU, Rook, as well as many other Noghri, were given to Thrawn by Darth Vader as a favor for helping him with a mission in the past. The relationship between Thrawn, the Noghri, and Vader is an important and interesting part of the books, so for me it's disappointing to see that he's been demoted to hired help. Effective hired help, but hired help nonetheless. Hera and Chopper escape the planet to get the data to the rebellion, while the rest are led to safety by a pack of Force-sensitive Lothwolves. Hera returns with a squadron of pilots to try and destroy the TIE Defender factory, but Thrawn is ready for them. All the rebels are shot down, and Hera is captured by the Empire. Thrawn then leaves for Coruscant to have an audience with the Emperor and argue why his Defender program should be funded over the Death Star. The Ghost crew move to rescue Hera, but as they are escaping, Kanan is forced to sacrifice himself after Governor Pryce orders her men to fire on them, destroying the TIE Defender fuel depot in the process. As the rebels are recovering from the loss of their friend, Thrawn learns that Pryce's actions have compromised the Defender program, and he begins his return to Lothal. After mourning Kanan's death, Ezra leads the rebels to the grounds of the old Jedi Temple and finds that the Empire has turned it into a dig site. Ezra and Sabine sneak in and discover a mural depicting the father, the daughter, and the son from the Clone Wars Mortis trilogy. They discover the mural is a doorway, and Ezra uses the Force to unlock it. They are discovered by the Empire, with Sabine being captured while Ezra escapes into the doorway. On the other side, he finds that it is filled with pathways leading to various points in time and space. He finds a door showing the battle between Vader and Ahsoka, and pulls Ahsoka through just as the temple begins to crumble beneath her and Vader. Having rescued her, he is then shown a door revealing the point of Kanan's death. While he initially wants to save his mentor, Ahsoka reasons with him that if they pull Kanan through, the rest of them would be killed by the blast instead. They are then greeted by the Emperor, using a dark force ritual to look and reach into the dimension. They escape but are separated, with Ahsoka leaving to take her own path while Ezra returns to the dig site. The rebels escape and begin to plan their liberation of Lothal. After capturing Governor Pryce, they use her as a hostage to take control of the Imperial Dome that acts as the control center of Imperial operations. After having all Imperial forces return to the Dome, the rebels begin preparing to launch the Dome into space and have it self-destruct. However, Thrawn returns and positions his Star Destroyer over the city, preventing them from launching the Dome. Ezra... You know what, I'll just let the clip say everything for itself.
Chopper, put me through. Governor Pryce is our prisoner, and we have complete control of the Imperial Dome, with every trooper, pilot, and officer trapped inside. You failed, Thrawn. Leave Lothal, and we might let your troops out before we blow the dome to pieces.
Are you quite finished? If you truly wish to save Lothal, Commander Bridger, the only term I'll accept is your immediate and unconditional surrender.
Why would I surrender when I hold your entire army prisoner?
No, you've simply moved my assets to a safe position, so that I can bombard the civilians of your home without incurring Imperial casualties.
This is the face of someone who just realized they have made a horrible mistake. With the tables having turned, Ezra surrenders himself to Thrawn while the rest of the rebels try to get the shield generator running to protect the city from the Star Destroyers. Aboard the Chimera, Ezra and Thrawn have a brief discussion about battle tactics and the Force. Afterwards, Thrawn takes Ezra to one of the ship's cargo holds, where the Empire is keeping part of the Jedi Temple from Lothal, and there to greet them is a hologram of Emperor Palpatine. Palpatine tries to tempt Ezra into activating the temple by telling him he can use it to save his parents. Ezra refuses and causes the temple to crumble to pieces. Ezra then escapes to the bridge to confront Thrawn. Once he gets to the bridge, he finds that his friends have reactivated the shield, and after a brief cameo by Captain Pelion, sees that Thrawn's fleet is being attacked by a school of space whales. See, I told you that episode in Season 2 was important. The Purrgil, as they're called, grab onto the Chimera and launch it along with Thrawn and Ezra into hyperspace, taking them into the unknown regions. With the Star Destroyers gone, the rest of the rebels are free to initiate the self-destruct and launch the dome into space, freeing Lothal from the Empire's grip. We then jump years into the future with Sabine recounting where the rest of the team went after the battle. She confirms Rex is indeed the guy with the white beard in Return of the Jedi. Zeb went to the New World the remnants of his species took to call home, and Hera fought in the battle over Endor and had given birth to her and Kanan's son, Jacen, with a C. Yes, I am admittedly a bit irked by this naming choice. I get that's probably just meant as a Thrawn trilogy reference, but the fact it's used here instead of as Kylo Ren's real name, like it should be, still annoys me. Is it petty? Maybe, but is giving the old EU names to these characters really too much to ask? So overall, Rebels is a really good show, especially if you can get through Season 1. If Season 1 is too childish, then I'd say you might try just jumping to either the halfway point or the final group of episodes when Tarkin steps in. Season 2 is a good season, and even the filler episodes were at least fun to watch. Season 3 is by far my favorite, as the introduction and handling of Thrawn was done to near perfection in my opinion. Season 4 is also extremely good, although I do wish that the way they beat Thrawn didn't sound like something they just drew at random out of Dave Filoni's cowboy hat. I mean, you introduced a time travel element and you didn't use it other than to save Ahsoka. I'll concede that the way the show pulls it off, it makes sense, since Thrawn wasn't around during the Purrgil episode, and so he wouldn't have known about them. But I just don't think the sentence, "Thrawn was beat by space whales," will ever not sound weird. I'm also not the biggest fan of them bringing back Ahsoka. Not that I ever hated her as a character, I just really respect when any sort of media has the guts to kill off a beloved character properly, and to me Ahsoka dying by the hand of Vader was a well-executed death and an acceptable end to the character. A death which has now lost much of its emotional strength due to this change. As for the characters, you've probably guessed, and rightly so, that Thrawn is my favorite. As for our heroes, I'd say Sabine is probably my favorite, not just because she's Mandalorian, but I also like the artistic element. Although I do think they turn her into a little bit of a Mary Sue later on, with the revelation that not only was she a weapons explosives specialist and an artist, but she was apparently a genius scientific inventor when she was around 12 to 14, I think. That isn't to say she doesn't have flaws, but the show kind of makes her out to be a jack-of-all-trades when she was only 16. Kanan is probably the next most interesting character, since he's not a standard Jedi and has to struggle with being Ezra's teacher while still sorting out his own problems. Zeb is cool. I don't really have much else to say about him. As far as droids go, Chopper is alright, and I'd be interested to see what would happen if you teamed him up with R2-D2. Hera's an alright character, but I think she is one of the weaker characters since she lacks any super memorable personal struggles that characters like Sabine and Kanan do. She isn't a bad character, as she is sort of the mother of the team, but I just don't find her that interesting. And then there's Ezra. I'm not going to lie, I never have and probably never will like this kid. In the first 2 seasons, I find him to be kind of annoying. It gets better in seasons 3 and 4, but still never to the point where I can confidently say that I like him. I think it's his attitude. He just has this sort of naive arrogance that gets on my nerves. I called him Space Aladdin in the beginning, and that's sort of the problem. He has similar characteristics to Aladdin, but he doesn't have the same charisma that Aladdin had. Aladdin was a fun rapscallion, while Ezra, especially in the first 3 seasons, comes across as kind of mopey and doesn't have the same cleverness that Aladdin does. While he does get better, the most I honestly feel about Ezra is indifference. And that about wraps it up. I have been Wolf Fury 501, and tune in next month, as I will be switching mediums to review not 1 but 2 books from the Disney fanfiction universe, Catalyst and Lost Stars. I hope to see you then. Bye.
Hey, the kids gotta eat.
Gotta eat to live, gotta still to eat. Tell you all about it when I got the time.